Yo, what is going on, homies? It's your boy Stump back for another Optc video, and in today's video, we're doing another Rumble video over here on the global side of the game, showcasing the new dominant team, and this team is so much fun. With Quick becoming sort of the main team in Rumble, it's getting a lot of resurgence, and it's still going to pick up moving forward with stuff like Ace vs Kainu, Magellan, Super Type Luffy. There's a lot of good units coming out, but in these early days, the Quick team is still running riot, taking down all of those stereotypical teams that we have seen be very, very dominant over here on the global side of the game for such a long time. So the Quick sort of resurgence has breathed a lot of life back into Rumble, which I've really, really enjoyed. So in today's video, we will be doing a lot of matches. I will leave timestamps in the description if you guys want to fast forward to those matches. I will leave some links in the description as well if you guys want to check out some of the other Rumble videos I have recently uploaded. I'll try and remember to add cards here and there, but if I forget, I do apologize. But the team basically looks like this. So it's centered around the newest Suga that has dropped on Optc Global, that is Super Type Kaido. This guy's an absolute weapon in Rumble. He gives HP up level 5, defense up level 3 for quick teammates, and then for the first 40 seconds of battle gives himself 10 speed and 10 attack. His special does a shit ton of damage and gives level 3 defense down and can give paralysis for 20 seconds at a 50% chance. So he's very, very good. And with the front lines all sort of buffing him, it actually helps out significantly. With the release of Queen's another really good Rumble unit that's free to play too, so I definitely farm him up. His cost is reduced at the moment as well, which is great, but basically 5 HP and 2 defense to all quick units. His special does level up 5, defense up level 5 and attack up to himself, and then he does a medium range horizontal for 1.7 times damage, which is really, really strong for this unit. He can tank significantly and does really, really well. Next, we've got Yonko. This free-to-play unit is very, very good, and I definitely farm him up. For strength, dex, and quicks, he gives defense up level 3 and gives himself 7 HP, so he's very tanky, and that's why I find he works best in the middle slot. His special on an 18-second cooldown will target a medium horizontal range for 0.7 of his attack, but level 12 attack down for 20 seconds, which you can stack as his cooldown is 18 and his attack down is 20 seconds. So he's a very, very good unit, and with the low cost of these free-to-play units, it allows you to use an 8-man team. Next, we've got Bellamy. Bellamy's another really good free-to-play unit. He's going to give level 4 defense down for 23 seconds on a 15-second cooldown and does 15% HP reduction. He gives himself defense down level 2, but gives himself level 5 attack up, but also gives driven class teammate HP up level 5. Now, this whole team, besides Yonko, is actually driven, besides the bench, obviously. So it works really, really well. Next, we've got, not Alkaji, we've got Tessero. Now, Tessero is replaceable with someone like V3 Kuzan, but I find that Tessero works just a little bit better, as he is a driven unit as well, and a quick unit. He can give defense up level 7 if you use his special for 10 seconds, but he's on a 34-second cooldown, and he also does fixed damage, which is really, really good, as this team doesn't have a lot of attack up, and most of the damage comes from fixed units and Kaido, plus the bench. The bench is very replaceable, however. So this is the bench that I like to rock, as it is based around nukers. We have Quick Whitebeard. For the first 50 seconds, he does a lot for the team, but in the last 50 seconds, he gives himself attack up level 10, cooldown level 5, and speed up level 5, so he can nuke really, really well at the back end of the fight, and with his special giving level 5 defense down and a butt ton of damage, as well as some special bind to powerhouse class enemies, 2 of them, it actually works really, really well as a frontline bench unit. Now, the next 2 units, for me, are just like your ace in the hole. With Sobermask and Zoro, they provide so much off the bench that once the sort of fight goes the distance, you can have them come in and clean up the scraps. Sobermask will do 2 times his attack in a medium horizontal range, and in the last 40 seconds, he'll do another horizontal 2 times attack. So very, very good nuker for the final seconds of the battle. If you come in that last 40 seconds, he can do a lot. His Rumble ability gives attack up level 5, speed up level 5, but reduces quick enemies defense down level 2. So he's going to be really, really good when you do come up against mirror matches and other Kaido teams. And then finally, we have Zoro on this team. Now, Zoro is an absolute weapon. I underestimated how good this unit is as a bench unit. His special does 1 times his attack in a frontal range, and when there's 50 seconds left, he does 2 times his attack as another attack. And then if there's 30 seconds left, he does another 2 times his attack as damage. So he can hit 3 times, provided during that last 30 seconds. And because he's in the final slot, he normally comes in around that time. His Rumble ability gives cooldown to his dex units, to himself by level 3. He gives attack up level 5 to himself, and dex teammates get level up, attack up 5, and speed up level 3. So for him and Sobermask coming in at the same time, it works really, really well. Now, there are some other really good units for this particular team that you can use. You do have this Eneru. the Int one that came out with the Super Type Blackbeard batch. He's another exceptional unit to replace Subamask with. He does a bunch of damage, guard up, and defense up for your rainbow units. And if you are utilizing something like Dofi in the front lines on this particular team as well, you could easily do that. And then he actually helps Dofi a lot as well. You have a lot of other really good options in units like Karxma. Karxma, the Pyre Rumble one, he's another very, very good nuker. You also have stuff like Nolan, Kolgara, and Nolan. They're another really, really strong option. Why can't I find Nolan? They're another really strong option for this team as well, as they do a lot of damage as well. Single target, and is a little bit more RNG, but it is what it is. As mentioned, though, you do have a couple different options for the front line as well. You do have Doflamingo, the 6+ Doflamingo, which should be, if I can find him, this one right here. He's another really good option, as this team is basically built around driven units, especially in the front lines anyway. But sort of focusing on quick in the front lines is the best way to go for this particular team, as I've sort of done a little bit of testing. I do have some other teams I do want to test this team on, but you have other options like Roger. Roger's another really good Rumble unit. He's a rainbow unit, gives defense up, does a lot of nerfing. And then finally, as mentioned, you also have Kuzan. We have the V3 Kuzan, this one here. He can do special bind, and he also provides a lot for your quick team as well. But as I mentioned, I do find Tessero to just be that little bit better. So that's enough about the team. Let's hop into some fights. Alright, so we have the closest thing that I could find to a mirror match. We are running the same setup in the front lines. We do have a little bit of a difference in ordering. I always like to have Ivankov in the middle, as Ivankov just has such a quick cooldown, and if he dies early, it just means that our bench units are going to come in and just start doing a lot of work for us. Very similar to Bellamy. I like having Bellamy in those middle slots, while having Kaido to either in the 1st or the 5th slot. That way he's stereotypically not getting hit too much, and his special just provides so much more than the other units. So having him hanging around for as long as possible just helps out the team a lot. If we lose Bellamy early, if we lose Ivankov early, it's not the end of the world, because they've already done what they need to do. They come in, they lower the defense, they do a bit of HP cutting, they lower attack wherever they can, and then if they die, they die. If it bleeds, it dies, as they say. So when after their specials pop off early as well, we always have Kaido coming in stereotypically after them, provided nothing else has really happened in terms of the nerfing effect and whatnot. But Kaido coming in after Bellamy is really, really strong, as Bellamy reduces the defense by 4, Kaido then reduces the defense, then does just a huge chunk of damage, and it just works exceptionally well, as Kaido then just hits ridiculously hard. Now, we actually got fairly unlucky here. All of our units are quite bunched, which means his Kaido special just does a lot more work than what it would do. And that's where I was saying RNG is still prevalent. Kaido could have targeted a unit that was away from all of my other units. That could just sort of reduce the effectiveness of Kaido's special. But either way, the damage Kaido can do, and his range is so damn good. And as you can see with Bellamy's special too, having such good range, it just helps out so much by hitting majority of the team, even if they are separated, reducing that RNG just a little bit, and just giving you guys a lot more reliability when it comes to Pirate Rumble. As, like I said, RNG is still a thing, and when it comes to gacha games, it's going to be such a huge force that you have to either play along with it or try your luck against it. But with this mirror match, we are doing quite well, actually. We did have his Whitebeard come in and sort of special seal us. We did lose Bellamy, but Bellamy had a full special charge. Before he popped it off, he's actually just going to give all of that to Whitebeard, which is actually quite good, as Whitebeard has such a high cooldown. Any head start that he can get is really, really nice, as he's very similar to Kaido, where he actually does a lot of damage after he lowers defense. So getting Whitebeard to come in for Bellamy is actually really nice, as he can provide something similar to Bellamy, just at a much slower rate, but at a much high damage. We're into the last 30 seconds now, which means that Subamask and Zoro are going to come into play with their amazing special abilities. Whether we need them or not is another question, as we still do have Kaido with that little bit of HP and enough to get his Thunder Buga off. We do have Whitebeard special ready to go too, and Whitebeard is going to reduce a lot of defense. This is what I mean by RNG. We got very, very unlucky there, and we actually only hit Cat Viper in the front, and we do manage to take him out with the Queen special, but lucky for us, we do have our boy Subamask here. Again, Subamask, some bad RNG there, only hitting one unit, but Kaido finished it off by taking out Tessero. So that was another good win. Let's move on to another fight now. Alright, so we've got another quick driven sort of centric team. This team is actually utilizing V3 Kuzan with Stussy in the back. Very strange to put Stussy in the back. If you are running Stussy, I highly would recommend putting her in the front and in the middle slot. The reason you kind of want her in the middle slot is because she's only really good for that first 40 seconds of the fight. And in the middle slot, you are stereotypically in the front lines, as you can kind of see with his Bellamy around there. And you can sort of see with my Ivankov being around the front. Ideally, you kind of want Stussy to go in, do her special, give her what she gives, and then just sort of bounce, and then rely on your bench. And having Enel in the bench for this particular team that he's running is actually really, really good, because he is running Dofi in the front as well. Enel, as mentioned in some of the other fights, is very good at giving a rainbow defense up. And when you are running Dofi in the front lines too, he actually gives his passive to Dofi as well. And his passive is so damn strong, especially for mono in teams. But he can find a way onto a bench very, very easily. And with this particular team, he has a lot of speed because he is running Kuzan as well. He has a lot of special charge, which is very, very good as well. And funny enough, I actually managed to take out Kuzan. So Stussy actually came in before the first 40 seconds. So for his particular team, it actually worked out quite well. We did manage to take out Bellamy very, very early as well, but the downside to that is now rare recruit Enel comes in while Dofi is still such a vibrant force on his particular team, which just provides it so much. So this particular team I really wanted to show off because it actually did quite well. I was actually very impressed with it, even after seeing that Stussy was in the back, which kind of like made me scratch my head a little bit, but I was very curious to see how it actually went. Now, as you can see, it's actually doing quite a lot of damage to us. It's getting a lot of nerfing off, it's getting a lot of paralysis with Kaido's special, but we actually managed to get very lucky with Tessero here, and Tessero actually was in a very good stead of giving everyone defense up. Tessero's special can give a nice chunky defensive buff, but his range is actually quite small. But the beautiful thing with Tessero is he's always giving the defense up to himself, so it's always going to be a benefit. He also does fixed damage, so you don't have to worry about defensive effects, attack nerfing, or anything like that, as this particular quick team in the front lines when we start the fight, we actually don't have any attack. We start at 0 attack, except for Kaido, who is just so self-sufficient, and that's what makes him so good on a variety of different teams, as he can just find his way in, basically just be your big damage dealer for the first, I think it's for the first 30 seconds of the fight, something like that, where he gives himself all those really, really good stats. And he can just do a lot of work for you. Now, as you can see here, we are down to the last 30 seconds. We do have a lot of our frontline units still left that are hanging on quite well. We do have Kaido coming in that's doing a lot of damage, and then we actually managed to take out his core. His core being Dofi, who gives a lot of defense, and then Kaido, who does a lot of his attacking. Once we sort of take that out, it's just basically a matter of time before we can actually finish this team off. We just need to rely on our specials to do the damage for us, and provided that he doesn't stall us out. Because we lose Whitebeard here, it actually works in our favor, because that way we get Sobermas to come in. We are cutting it very, very close with the time here, but because we've only got one unit left on the opposite side of the field, we can easily just get the dub that way. So that was another quick team, or quick driven team. Let's move on to another fight. So it looks like we got a little bit of a mirror match here. So I managed to find a majority mono quick team that does utilize Stussy and V1 Kuzan, which is a little bit strange. If it was me, I would have Queen in the front lines and then maybe have Kuzan in the first sub slot or the bench slot, as Kuzan is very RNG reliant to get the action bind off, and that's another reason why I'm not a huge fan of V3 Kuzan as well. But if you did want to run a traditionally mono stereotypical quick team in the early stages, you can easily put Kuzan on this particular team that we are using instead of Zoro, and then just basically shift everyone on the bench back a slot, bring Kuzan to the first slot of the bench, and then you're pretty much hunky-dory. If you want to rely on those RNG sort of capabilities, but running an 8-man team is just so damn strong in this day and age, and bench has just become so much stronger than it once was. Once upon a time, you would just sort of focus on those 5 core units, relying on them to sort of do all the damage for you, but with some really good free-to-play units, especially Bellamy and Ivankov, they are just exceptional units. They're very, very easy to farm, so if you are looking for some good units for Rumble, definitely farm them up, because they can do so much for your team, especially Bellamy with the amount of specials he can pop off, with the amount of defense reduction he has, and then Ivankov with the amount of attack down removal that you can actually get, which is just insane. 12 levels of attack down is just absolutely phenomenal, and his range is so damn good that even like teams that just have such high attack just end up getting nerfed so much that they don't do much damage. And then the opposition has to rely on stuff like HP cuts, they have to rely on fixed damage, but because we have so much HP and we can just tank for days, it really doesn't matter too much to us, especially when we do have the big dog Zoro in the back, just waiting for that 40-second mark to come in and just absolutely clap. I do have a couple of matches where he does come in and save the day, but I think I'll save them towards the end of the video. So we do have Whitebeard coming in now. we are going to nerf a little bit more. We're going to drop some attack there. Unfortunately, EGOgotic doesn't do too much damage, but he's really here for his sort of HP passive, as well as his nerfing attack abilities. He's a quick centric unit as well. Very, very easy to farm. So definitely farm him up, rainbow him out, max his special, max his sockets. Do all that fun stuff to give him as much stats in Rumble as possible. Tessero is another really, really good unit for this particular team. I actually limit break keyed my Tessero, sort of preparing for the driven / quick meta that is coming to Rumble. If you guys have him, definitely max him out. You don't have to limit break key him or anything like that, but he is a very, very good unit, as he not only provides special cooldown, but a lot of defense with his special. So that was the mirror match. We managed to clap that. Let's move on to another fight. Alright, so this one was a bit of a funny one. This is definitely a mono, quick, driven-based team, but they've tried to sort of confuse people by their ordering of their units, by putting units in the back so they actually come to the front to make it look like it's a bit of a janky team. But realistically, everything gets shifted forward. But they are utilizing Dofi on this team with a basic driven sort of build around the front. Now, Dofi's a great sub for this particular team as well, as it is very driven-centric. You can easily just put him in the front lines instead of EGOgotic. But EGOgovic's HP buff, I'm pretty sure it's HP, it might be defense. But also that attack down that he can get with his such low cooldown. As you can see, he actually popped off before Bellamy in this particular fight. And if you're coming up against Kaido mirror matches, you really want to start nerfing that attack down, as Kaido can still do a lot of damage even with the nerfing that EGOgotic can provide, and you're about to see that right here. Kaido's paralysis is fairly annoying, as well as the amount of damage that he can do, and his defense down as well. But when we are running the mirror match, we have our own Kaido, so we can rely on that too. And because he's not running EGOgotic in the front lines, our Kaido isn't getting attacked down at all. So that Kaido smash is actually doing a lot more damage than what it should be if he had EGOgotic in the front lines. But as I mentioned, Dofi's still a phenomenal unit, giving a lot of guard, giving a lot of crit, giving a lot of defense up with his special, also doing a lot of damage. It can provide your team a lot, as this team, as mentioned, is very driven-centric. You can also slap Roger on. I will leave like a little card for the original quick team that I was running that actually utilized Roger before Queen's release. But with Queen being out now, it's just sort of the resurgence of this powerful, quick, tanky team that can sort of just do a lot. Obviously, when it comes to Rumble, there is always a counter to a particular team, but the chances of actually finding that particular counter and you being able to just reload what fights you actually find means that you can just avoid those particular units. And as mentioned in some of the other fights, you really want to try and stay away from stuff like Corazon especially, and Wano Law. When the Psy Enel comes out, this team may struggle a little bit, and that team may be like the top team for a little while, but we still have some very phenomenal quick units that need to come out, like especially Versa Kainu, who's an absolute monster in Rumble. We have stuff like the Super Tight Luffy, Anniversary Luffy, who's really, really good for the quick team. We have Magellan, absolute phenomenal unit, and then stuff like Pirate Rumble Shiryu that just does so much work for this particular team, as well as allowing it to stay at its 8-man potential, as it does have a lot of Rumble units, a lot of free-to-play units that have very low cost. As you can see though, we've just managed to just decimate this particular fight. We've got a lot of defense going, we've still got a lot of units, and we're down to that 30-second mark. So if we start losing units here, it's really not that big of a deal, because if we start losing units, we have our nukers to come in and clean up the scraps, and all that's left is scraps. Sobermask and Zora being on bench just basically saves this team significantly, as it is so defense and HP orientated that if it gets to those last few seconds and we have those nukers to come in, we can still win the match, which is great, and not get stalled out. So that was another mirror match. Let's move on to another fight. Alright, so now we're looking at taking on a Int team. Now this team is actually pretty solid and has been floating around for a little while now. Int sort of just has always been good when it comes to Rumble, and with the additions of something like Halloween Shanks, you've got Super Tight Katakuri, Super Tight Blackbeard, and then holding it all together you have Dofi, who boosts slashes and driven, and as you can tell, this whole team is that. They also have Rare Recruit Enel, who's also a very, very good Pirate Rumble unit, so they are very, very tanky, but for this quick centric team, it really doesn't matter too much, as we have a lot of defense reduction with Bellamy and Kaido, so all of the extra defense and all the extra HP that the Int team normally has, it makes them quite scary. For the quick team, it just doesn't matter too much. All the extra attack that Blackbeard gives himself gets reduced by EGOgotic. We have Kaido coming in, paralyzing, as you can tell, as well as just doing a butt ton of damage. And the slashes that, the Int team just doesn't even have enough time to sort of get off the ground, as the quick team sort of just puts them in their place before they even get a chance to do that. They do have some quite high levels. This whole team was maxed out. So it just shows you like how strong this quick team actually is against the team that was so dominant for so long. So we do lose abilities about that. We do lose Bellamy quite early, which is actually pretty standard for this particular team, but this particular team's bench is so strong that ideally you basically just want to just utilize your quick units to just sort of whittle down the enemy. And then once you get to the 40-second mark, you have Enel and Zoro especially coming in. If we can get Zoro to come in around that 40-second mark, it's basically GG, provided they don't kill him quickly, or provided he's not the only one left on the field, which is very, very rare. But as you can see, we got EGOgotic bringing down their attack. They're on -12 attack. Blackbeard, who normally does a lot of damage, is just doing absolutely nothing with his specials because we've nerfed him so damn much. And then basically we just have Whitebeard to clean up some scraps. We have Kaido popping off his special a second time, and that should basically wrap it up. Because they've got Dofi on this team, they've got a very strong core. And as you can tell, with the defensive capabilities of the Int team, the fights tend to go the distance. But once we hit that last 30 seconds, even if we start losing units now, it's not that big of an issue because we will have Enel coming in. Enel's really, really good as a bench unit. He gives rainbow defense up, and then obviously Zoro's just great as a nuker. Queen can also bide his time as well. And I'm surprised Ivankov's still going so strong. Normally Ivankov gets taken out as well, but it's not that big of an issue as Ivankov's literally just here to sort of give us that extra nerfing capabilities that he's so good at doing. Alright, we're going to say goodbye to Dofi, and that's against Mono In. So, as scary as sort of like how low HP we look, we never look like losing at all. So, pretty good showing. Alright, so we found another stereotypical Int team, and this team's focusing on utilizing Halloween Lore. Halloween Lore is just an exceptional Rumble unit. As you guys know, he has a 100% chance to special seal, and that's another thing that makes Kaido so damn strong, as mentioned in the other Int fight, or the other Neo Slasher fight, I think it was, that Kaido's actually immune to special seal, and being immune to special seal is just absolutely ridiculously strong, especially for characters that specials are so prevalent on the team. And Kaido is basically our main damage dealer in our front lines. He's very, very tanky as well, so he hangs around for a very long time, but there's just no way to nerf him in that kind of way. Very similar to Odin, where Odin on the Slasher team was just such a vibrant force of destruction, but you could easily just special bind him up, and that way you wouldn't have to worry about it too much when it comes to his special. As you can see, he just special blinds all of our units, but Kaido being Kaido means that it doesn't matter. We can easily come in, blow away their units, do a lot of nerfing, and then just continuously tank the specials that they have coming for us. They do have Pirate Rumble Enel in the back as well. Not Pirate Rumble Enel, sorry, Rare Recruit Enel. I always call him Pirate Rumble Enel because that's basically what he's good for. They have Enel in the back, who's a phenomenal unit, especially on the Int team, but if you guys are looking for a really good bench option and you don't have something like Sober Mask, you can easily slot in Enel on this particular team. You will have to do a bit of changing as it won't be an 8-man team, but Enel is another really, really good option as he can not only give rainbow defense up with his amazing special, but he does a lot of damage too, like a lot of damage. And the fact that we aren't running any Int units doesn't matter too much because he can actually provide us with a little bit of extra defense, just again to stall out to get to that 40-second mark to let the big dog Zoro come in and do all the heavy lifting. So if you did manage to pick up Zoro, be very, very happy. I would highly recommend leveling up his Rumble. He's a really, really good bench unit, like a phenomenal bench unit. I've underrated how great Zoro actually is, and obviously Sober Mask with his nuking potentials is really strong too, but you do have other options. As you can see, we do have Whitebeard here. The Rare Recruit Enel is very, very good. You also have stuff like Karku, Kolkar, and Nolan. And then with the lore that is coming out very soon for Rumble, that is another good option. For some reason, Dofi's hiding off to the side. I don't really know what happened with this match. He's kind of hidden off screen, which is really strange. You can actually see the border there when we do the Bellamy special, which is just really odd. The fact that he's just gone right to that borderline and borderline off the screen. But that's that. That was another Int team. Let's move on to another fight now. So we've got a pretty standard Slasher team here, utilizing Halloween Lore instead of regular Wano Lore. Now, with this quick team, it's very driven-centric, so Wano Lore and especially Corazon still do a really, really good job of actually nerfing this particular setup. But with Halloween Lore, things can look a little bit different, as with Halloween Lore, we have a lot of the opposition has a lot of special bind. They are utilizing Halloween Shanks as well, and this particular team we're going up against is one of my favorite teams to actually run. The Neo Slashers, as I like to call it, or the Halloween Slashers hybrid, with Roger and Odin and then Dofi being the core. But this particular fight actually goes down to the wire, as in Block B, Slashers are actually boosted, so they actually have a bit of better stance, and as you can see, Lore's popping off his special a lot quicker, special binding all of our units except for Kaido. Now, the best thing about Kaido, very similar to Roger, is he can't actually be special binded, which is very, very good, especially when you are coming up against units like Halloween Law and V3 Kuzan. As you can see there, we managed to take out Shanks fairly quickly, which is great, because Shanks can do quite a lot of damage, and he can also action bind, which means that we can't use our units. Dofi's going to come in and take out Bellamy before Bellamy even has a chance to attack, and we are going to take the full front of a Odin special as well. But with the tankiness this team actually has, as you can see, we managed to tank not only Dofi, but we pretty much managed to tank Odin as well with our main characters. Kaido is looking pretty low, but like I mentioned at the beginning, our bench is so strong that all we need is our quick units to just do their job in terms of nerfing, stalling out a few more, bit more on the timer, just so we can allow Zoro to come in and just absolutely clap, basically. Once Zoro comes in, provided he comes in on a character that has a bunch of special charge, he will gain their special charge, and then he can just basically do the work for us. Now, this wasn't the fight that I was thinking of, and we managed to just absolutely destroy it. So, Quick just does really, really well against the Neo Slashers, like really, really well. But let's move on to the next fight now. Alright, so we have another Slasher team here, and this is stereotypically the strongest defensive Slasher team that was floating around. Now, ideally, the main Slasher team that we normally do see is actually with Law and Kizaru as well. But just with this setup of this Quick team, as I mentioned, you really want to try and stay away from Wano Law. Wano Law can do a lot of damage, but I haven't really done too much testing with it, just trying our luck against him. I have sort of avoided him per se, especially Corazon as well, and the Mono Dex team. That is another team that this team can struggle with, but once Rumble comes back around, I will do some testing there and sort of sacrifice some wins. I've already made championships, so that's fine, but if we lose some matches, it's not the end of the world. I really want to see how it goes up against the Mono Dex team, as well as taking on something like Law. This is basically as strong as a defensive Slasher team as you'll see. Shanks Crew on a defensive team is just so damn strong, especially once you hit the 70-second mark, and lucky for us, we managed to get Kaido's special to pop off before that point. Once they hit 70 seconds, Shanks gives the crew a bunch of defense, and not only does he give the crew a bunch of defense, but his special is pretty much ready to go too, which will give even more defense. But as you can see, with the amount of attack this team has, we managed to take out Kizaru, which is really, really good, because Kizaru gives a lot of special cooldown and a lot of speed to the Slashers. But nevertheless, we are still going to take the full front of all of the Odin, all of the Roger, all of the Dofi specials as well. And then we're going to start losing some characters. But again, this bench that we have is so damn strong with Whitebeard, Sobermask, and Zoro that even if the Slashers do get such a head start on us and manage to take out a lot of units early on, we just basically have to utilize our defense to stall out. And that's why I think Tessero works a lot better on the quick team than V3 Kuzan, especially when you are running such a strong bench. We did manage to lose Ivankov, but we lost Ivankov right at the point where he's basically going to give all of his special charge to Sobermask, which is really, really good, because Sobermask in the last 40 seconds will do a lot of nuking damage and basically wipe out the stage for us, provided that Kaido doesn't do it for us. But there you guys go. That was against the defensive Slasher team. Let's move on to another fight now. Alright, so moving on to another Slasher team utilizing Halloween Law and Kizaru. Again, I didn't try and fight Wano Law, as I did want to actually rank in Block B to actually get into the championship. So as I mentioned, when we get into Block C, which actually comes out today, I will do some further testing with this particular setup against stuff like the Mono Dex defensive team and against the main Slashers that utilizes Wano Law. But whenever you are doing these fights, as I mentioned, I think either at the start of the video or in some of the other fights, I haven't decided how I'm going to structure the fights layout, but you just really want to be careful when you are versing characters that do nerf this particular team. And as mentioned, in Rumble, there are characters that are better against other characters. Not every single team is going to be successful against every single team all the time. RNG still plays a huge part, as well as team setups to nerf particular classes or colors. And when it comes to stuff like Corazon and Wano Law, as you've seen in my counter video, which again, I'll try and leave a card or a link in the description for you guys if you want to check that video out, there is ways to counteract this particular setup, and it's not the be-all or end-all. Now, in Block B, Slashers were getting buffed, so this particular team that we're versing is a little bit stronger than it normally would be. So this gives us a really, really good indication of how strong this quick meta team is, as even with the positive buffs that the Slasher team gets, we can actually still manage to take them out fairly well, provided we are running that 8-man setup with our bench units coming in and sort of cleaning up what the quick team has sort of set up for them. Subamask and Zoro, they're such a good combo off the bench, just to provide so much extra damage in the final seconds of the fight after we've already set up with a lot of attack down, with a lot of defense down with our quick units. And as you can see, we managed to get Subamask to just come in with his special after taking out Invenkov, and that's a beautiful thing about the bench as well. Zoro managed to come in and take all of Kaido's special, and with that, we can say goodbye to his team as Subamask is just going to absolutely clap, and then our big dog Zoro is just going to finish off the rest. So that was a really good showing for, well, this will be a really good showing for our bench units and how strong the bench has actually become. As once we now get Zoro in this last 30 seconds, he's going to go 1, 2, and then he actually has another shot that he has coming as well. So Zoro just cleaning up the scraps for the mono quick team. Let's move on to another fight now. Alright, so I did manage to actually find a Wano Law sort of team comp, but there is no Odin on this particular team. Now, Odin does a lot of damage, but Wano Law is actually a lot scarier for this particular setup. So I actually managed to find this team thinking that it was the stereotypical slasher team, but I didn't actually realize they were using Shanks crew instead of Odin. So defensively, this team actually is a little bit better, but offensively, it is much worse than the stereotypical slasher team because Odin's special is just such a force, and it is actually really scary when it pops off. But for the quick team, we actually have a lot of HP. Now, the best thing about HP is it can't be nerfed by specials. As far as I know, there isn't a special that actually reduces HP, like the stat HP. I think on Japan, there is like Moria. I think with his ability, he can halve the stats, and I think HP is included into that. But as for us here over on Global, we don't really have that issue. So HP is just so damn good. But the easiest way to get around that is obviously with HP cuts. So Shanks crew is actually quite scary, as his HP cutting and his defensive buffs he can give not only to his team after the 70-second mark, but with his special, as well as in having Roger nerfing us so drastically. It can be quite scary. Law is really good at nerfing Driven and Powerhouse units, which this whole team is besides Invenkov. And as you can see, we lose Bellamy so early that I don't even think he popped his special off. He might have popped his special off. I might have just been rambling away and just missed that. But we actually lose Bellamy so damn quick, as the Slashers, they do have a lot of speed. Even without Odin, they still have a lot of speed. They're reducing our guard, they're reducing our special charge time, and they're also nerfing our speed, our attack, and all that sort of stuff with Roger's amazing special. But as time goes on, we can sort of just tank the specials. We can do some nerfing of our own, and that way we can just rely on our big hitters like Kaido, Whitebeard, and then once Subamask and Zoro actually come into the field of play, they can actually do a lot of work too. If you guys are missing stuff like the Rumble units like Subamask and stuff like the Zoro, as mentioned, you can use stuff like V3 Kuzan is a really good bench option. You have stuff like Carrot, who's another really good option for the quick team. Pirate Rumble Stussy is also great. The Pirate Rumble Neko is really good. You could also find a spot for the new Pirate Rumble Lucy that came out. He's a very good unit too, and another free-to-play unit who's actually boosted at the moment with low cost. So we did lose 2 of our units, and we lost one of our big damage dealers in Kaido. But because of that, we actually get our dynamic duo of Subamask coming in, as well as Zoro. Now, Subamask got fairly unlucky, and he actually only hit 1 unit. But lucky for us, it was Dofi, and Dofi being the defensive core of this particular team, and Shanks crew, just means that we actually get quite lucky in taking him out. And then once we get our Zoro special ready to go, we should be able to clean up the rest of the scraps here. This fight was actually fairly close, and this is what I mean by Wano Law being just such an absolute crazy unit to take on the Driven team, and that's why having Zoro in the back just helps out so damn much. So that was another really good win against a nerfing unit. Let's move on to the final fight now, or possibly the final fight. Alright, so for the final fight of the video, I managed to find the Driven Roger hybrid team that was floating around before Queen actually came out, and this was the team that I was actually rocking before Queen. Now, I didn't have Whitebeard in the front lines like this particular team does, but it does work very well. I actually had Whitebeard where I have my Whitebeard here, and I was using something like Bellamy on the particular team, as Bellamy's another Driven unit. He's really good at nerfing, but in saying that, Whitebeard is still a fantastic unit, whether you have him on your bench or in the front lines, especially for the quick team, because he just boosts quick units. But the downside to using Whitebeard in the front is he doesn't have any buff from Dofi, and that's why utilizing him in the sub slots and then having something like Bellamy in the front lines is a little bit better. But Potato works quite well. This was the only sort of team that I could find that was as close to that driven team as possible. I was sitting there refreshing like crazy, but this was the best that I could come up with. And it is a pretty good showing of what this new quick team that I have been using can do, as well as the potentials of that old team. And that is it right there. Having Whitebeard in the front lines means that you are going to get his special quite quickly, as well as then getting the Roger special. And if you can pop Whitebeard off after Roger, you can do a lot of damage. Whitebeard's really, really good at sealing powerhouse characters' specials as well. So we actually get our specials sealed from our Queen unit, which is a little bit annoying. But it's not the end of the world, as Queen's passive is so good, and that's a big reason why Queen's actually here. As you can see, he's nerfed us to the absolute shithouse. We have minus 10 speed, we had like lowered attack, we just actually let everything going because of the Roger special. Now that that's gone though, we can sort of start building ourselves back up and start nerfing them down once again. His Kaido's going to come in, probably take out Invicov. No, Invicov's just an absolute machine apparently, just tanking good old Kaido shots there. The power of the Kama. Our Kaido's going to come in now, lower some defense, do a bunch of damage, wipe out Whitebeard, and then he's actually got Stussy coming in. This is what I mean by Stussy being on the bench is a bit of a waste, as if the fight goes quite long, Stussy's just sort of there as another quick unit. You're probably better off using something like Neko, the Rumble Neko, or even using something like the Rumble Lucy that just sort of came out as well. Just sort of a little bit of a better option. We did have Whitebeard there coming in, cleaning up the scraps. Managed to take out Dofi, which is really, really good. So now we're just sort of taking out all of his defensive capabilities. Roger's giving him themselves special cooldown too, though. So we are going to see some specials a little bit sooner. Roger's really, really good still in Rumble, and he just finds his way onto pretty much any team, as he can just provide so much for, as he is a rainbow unit. But with the quick team, it just doesn't matter too much, as once we do get down to those final seconds, we are, or I shouldn't really call it the quick team. It's more like the quick Dex team. More of a driven team, really, but you guys know what I mean. The bench, like I said in the beginning, like the bench is just so damn strong nowadays, and running an 8-man team, especially when you are attacking, and you see stuff like Zoro like do this, it's just absolutely wild. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you go down there and belt the like button for me if you're new to the channel. Hit the big red subscribe button too. But guys, wherever you are in this beautiful world, remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, I thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Lights!